The call comes on a Tuesday. A woman's voice, measured and unhurried, the kind of calm that sounds constructed. She doesn't name the organization. She asks whether you've traveled outside the UK in the past decade, whether any family members hold foreign nationality, whether you've ever been treated for a psychological condition. 40 minutes. At the end, we'll be in touch. Not when, not how. A plain white envelope arrives 10 days later. An assessment center. A date. No letterhead. The building looks like a regional insurance office. Pale carpet, strip lighting, 15 candidates in rows pretending to be relaxed. The first exercise is a written scenario, a fabricated government, incomplete intelligence, a recommendation required for a senior minister. They aren't testing whether your answer is correct. There is no correct answer. They're testing how you think when the evidence has gaps and the stakes are high. The group exercise follows. 4 strangers, a manufactured crisis, a clock moving faster than the information does. Assessors write in notebooks and never look up. They're watching whether you listen, whether you adapt, whether you stiffen or bend when the rules shift without warning.
The interview is 2 people across a table. One asks questions, the other watches your hands. They ask why you want this job. You begin the rehearsed answer. They stop you. Why do you actually want it? You stumble. That's exactly what they needed. What follows is developed vetting, the most invasive background process run by any Western government. They examine your parents, former partners, university housemates you haven't spoken to in years, neighbors you've never met, a decade of financial records, every country visited, every contact made there. They're building a vulnerability map. Debt, ideology, foreign connections, anything a hostile service could exploit to turn you. The process takes 8 months, during which you cannot tell a single person you've applied, not your parents, not the person sleeping next to you. You are already learning to compartmentalize. You just don't have the word for it yet.
A facility on the southern coast of England whose name appears in no public record. Old stone, razor wire, the channel gray and flat to the south. 18 candidates begin. 14 will finish. The training runs on 3 pillars. Tradecraft first. Surveillance detection routes through real cities, dead drops in public parks, brush passes in crowded railway stations so clean that frame-by-frame camera review couldn't isolate the moment. You service dead letterboxes at 2 in the morning, while instructor teams posing as hostile surveillance try to catch you. If they do, you start over. You build cover identities deep enough to hold under hours of aggressive interrogation and rehearse them in sleep-deprived scenarios until the false biography feels more inhabited than your own. The second pillar is agent recruitment, the fundamental purpose of MI6. You don't spy, you recruit spies. You learn the developmental cycle. Identify, assess, develop, pitch. The pitch is the moment you look a foreign national in the eye and ask them to betray their country on behalf of the British Crown. You study the 4 motivations: money, ideology, coercion, ego, and practice recruitment approaches in real cafes and hotel lobbies with real strangers, building trust and extracting personal information without revealing who you are.
The third pillar is resistance to interrogation. They hood you, stress positions against a cold wall, white noise for hours, 72 hours without sleep, then a man screaming contradictory questions 6 inches from your face. Your only task is to maintain your cover and reveal nothing. Some candidates break within hours. Nobody emerges as the same person who went in. There is no graduation ceremony. A senior officer finds you in a corridor, shakes your hand, and says, "Welcome to the service. You are now an officer of the Secret Intelligence Service, the organization the world calls MI6.
First posting. A British embassy in a country that matters strategically but rarely appears in Western headlines. Officially, you are a second secretary in the political section. Diplomatic passport, plausible cover, cables to the Foreign Office about local politics. Unofficially, you work for the station, the MI6 office behind a door most embassy staff will never open. Your job is to recruit agents. You attend government receptions and defense ministry briefings. You identify candidates. The procurement official who drinks too much and complains about being overlooked. The scientist quietly disillusioned with her government. The businessman who needs financing his own banks won't touch. You befriend them over months. Coffee, lunch, embassy invitations. You remember their children's birthdays and ask after their parents. You become the most consistently attentive person in their life. You are also calculating every conversation toward the moment the relationship can bear the weight of a pitch.
Your first successful recruitment takes 11 months. A military officer with access to regional weapons data. His motivation is ego. He believes his government has chronically undervalued him. You correct that. You tell him London regards him as one of the most strategically significant minds in the region. Some of it is true. All of it is calibrated. He agrees to share documents. You assign a cryptonym, establish a communications protocol, and write your first CX report, the prefix the service stamps on all finished intelligence, routed through encrypted relay to Vauxhall Cross, that green and cream fortress on the south bank of the Thames that looks like a brutalist architect lost in argument with a postmodernist. Your head of station reads it and says, "Not bad." You won't receive warmer praise for the rest of the year.
9 years in, 3 postings, 14 agents recruited, 2 compromised, 1 arrested by a hostile domestic service, 6 years in a foreign cell before a quiet exchange brought him home to a life he no longer recognized. You think about him more than the 12 who came through intact. You think about whether you pushed too hard, moved too fast, whether the intelligence he produced, genuinely consequential intelligence, was worth the price he paid. Nobody in the service discusses this arithmetic aloud. It calculates itself inside you at 3 in the morning when your defenses are down. Your specialization now is counter-proliferation, sources inside networks moving nuclear material, chemical precursors, missile components. You meet an agent in a Vienna hotel room who passes you a drive containing technical documentation for an enrichment facility Western governments believed was still theoretical. It isn't. You walk out with the drive in your jacket pocket, take 2 taxis and a metro, reach the safe house 90 minutes later. Your hands don't shake anymore. They stopped in year 4. Whether that represents mastery or erosion, you've stopped trying to determine.
First morning as head of station, everything shifts. You are no longer running operations. You are responsible for everyone who is. 7 officers. Every agent they handle, every risk they accept, every meeting that goes differently than the plan said it would. All of it lands on your desk. If an officer is identified, it's your career. If an agent is arrested, it's your authorization that approved the operation. The country is a hard target. Your officers are surveilled from the moment they leave the compound. The station has been technically penetrated in ways your support team discovers on a rolling basis. A meeting with an agent requires 3 hours of surveillance detection before 20 minutes in a vehicle on the city's outskirts. Your marriage is fracturing. Your wife knows the name of the organization. Spouses are briefed during vetting. She doesn't know the work. She doesn't know why you leave at midnight and return at 3 carrying cold air and other people's cigarette smoke. She asks once if there's someone else. You say no. The honest answer is that there are hundreds of people she'll never know about, and that distance is considerably harder to close than an affair.
Vauxhall Cross, 6th floor. You control an entire geographic region, its stations, officers, agents, operations, and failures. 40 officers across 10 countries. Hundreds of agents whose real names you know but will not speak in any room that hasn't been swept. A CX report from one of your sources changes the Prime Minister's position on a sanctions package. A recruitment you personally authorized produces the first human source inside a hostile missile program in 14 years. Neither will ever be published. The failures, however, arrive at your desk with full documentation. An agent exposed, not through any operational failure, but because his wife noticed a pattern in their finances and mentioned it to a relative who works for the wrong people. He will serve a decade in a cell. You approved the payments that made him visible. That weight joins the collection. The collection never gets lighter. It gets better organized. That is not the same thing.
The letter is written in green ink. It has been since Mansfield Cumming, the service's first chief, signed his correspondence with a solitary C at the turn of the 20th century. Every chief since has continued it. Now the pen is yours. You advise the Prime Minister. You sit on the Joint Intelligence Committee alongside the heads of MI5 and GCHQ. You manage the most consequential intelligence partnership in the world, SIS and the CIA, through personal trust, because institutional trust has never been sufficient on its own. You share what saves their lives, They share what saves yours. Neither side shares everything. Even between the closest allies, there are rooms within rooms. When you hand the green ink to your successor, it happens on an ordinary morning. A handshake, a brief exchange, then you walk out of the building, cross Vauxhall Bridge, and London opens around you. Millions of people with no awareness of what you spent 3 decades doing inside that building on the riverbank. That was always the point. The work is invisible. The cost is invisible. The successes are never published. Only the failures occasionally surface, stripped of context, in headlines that tell a fraction of a story no one is permitted to complete.